Okay, so scene 4. This is another short scene, and it's another flashback, right? Similar to scene 1 that we looked at. So, again, remember that this is not based on Catherine's memories, it's a real flashback that is part of the entire play. So, this particular scene is quite poignant. Um, Why do I say that? Because it really shows us Robert's passion for mathematics and his disconnection from Catherine, his unawareness of how it affects her. And it also shows us quite clearly Catherine's love for him and the amount of sacrifice that she makes for him. Right? So let's get into it. In this scene, Robert's machinery is working again. Um, it's interesting how he says on page 70 that it's a question of priorities and work takes priority. So here she is, she's away in Northwestern University. She's been trying to contact him, and she's so worried she rushed back, interrupting her schedule and everything. And again, all Robert is concerned about is work. For him, work takes priority, and nothing else does, right? Everything else is secondary. I mean, his daughter's well being and so on. So the machinery is working again. His source of creativity is back, which means, his insanity is back as well. At the bottom of page 70, he talks about, you know, what is it like in his head, and it's quite clear to us, right, where he says things like, it will be a tremendous amount of work, and it's not going to be easy, but I can accelerate. I see whole landscapes, new techniques, revolutionary possibilities. So you can see how he's really excited. He's almost happy that he's back to this, that he's connected again with his creativity, and he's no longer just mundane and normal and sane. In the midst of his excited revelation, he stops, and then he says on page 71, I'm sorry, I'm being rude. How's school? So Catherine is quite taken aback, and then she's like, fine, right? So why do you think all of a sudden Robert stops his excitement with how his back and his machinery is working again to ask about something as normal as a school? What are his motives here, right? So this is revealed. Um, he is, you know, really happy that Catherine's genuinely interested, and he says, you know how happy that makes me. And there's a beat before, she says, yes. What do you think that means? Why is there an awkward beat before she says yes when he says, you know how happy that makes me? Because, she's well aware, like how when he gets to this situation, all he's ever concerned about is his happiness on some level, and all that he's happy about is his mathematics, his work, and nothing else matters. And she knows that something's going to go wrong here, that she's going to be sucked into what makes him happy. So, when she says yes, it is not an affirming yes, it is a reluctant yes. So then Robert goes on to talk about how he was terrified he'd never work again, and how it was remembering her, right, that helped him to get back to working. And then he says, it's part of the reason we have children. We hope they'll survive us, accomplish what you can't, and work with me. So what he's saying here, I mean, if you were a child and you put yourself in Catherine's shoes, wouldn't you feel incredibly guilty at even thinking about turning him down, right? And as far as Robert is concerned, remember what I said earlier in scene one, he's just more interested in having a protege. For him, he sees his daughter as his protege. He doesn't see her as a real person with her own desires her own and her own interests and her own goals, right? I mean, what is she all about? He doesn't really know. He doesn't really care. He just sees her as his inspiration, as his protege, right? And he needs her now to work with him because he can't quite accomplish this on his own, right? While he says how his machinery is working again and everything, he needs her to come back home so that he can accomplish what he wants to. And Catherine's reaction is, after a long moment, right, on page 73, she says she's been reading the notebook all this while, and then she just keeps quiet, and then she says, Dad, let's go inside. And then we realize why, because she starts reading aloud what he's written in the notebook, his supposed um, creative inspiration, right? And it's all just jargon. So if you look at at the bottom of page 73, she's reading it and she says, let x equal the quantity of all quantities of x. Let x equal the cold. It is cold in December. The months of cold equal November through February. You can see how the writing is just, you know, the ravings of a lunatic almost. And when she reads it, um, she stops reading and closes the book slowly, and Robert is shivering uncontrollably. She puts her arm around him and helps him to his feet, and then he says, please don't leave. And she says, I won't. Let's go inside. So, even his physical shivering, and she puts her hand around him to comfort him, to support him. And and this is the moment where she realizes she's going to be there for him. She's not going to leave him. And probably, the start of how she isolates herself. Not probably, but it is the start of how she isolates herself and she gives up her life for him.